Hi crafters, Raquel from Paints and Glitter here. I'm a crafter for Tonic Studios and I'm bringing you today the Retro Robot Gift Box Dice Set. This set comes with 50 pieces. It has moving arms and a really cool locking mechanism. And it also can be used as a money box. Today I'll be cutting out the pieces and creating a tutorial for you so that we can put one of these robots together. But first let me describe a few of the pieces that you see here. As you can tell, there are these really cool little decorative portions that you can use on the robot with the gears, and if you like that sort of thing, you're going to find it useful not just for this make but also for card making, which I think is really neat. And there are little decorative layers. I love all of the little edges there to give the paper texture, along with plates such as these. This here is something that we call a verso die. So when you see a die such as this one that doesn't have a cutting edge, that means that you can run this through your machine with the paper that you've cut with the edge and then use this as an embossing plate. So depending on what technique you may want to use, you could definitely ink this, or you could just use your embossing plate combination and receive some really cool results with mirror card, for instance. So there's a sentiment included with this set, and it does say "I love you, a bot," with an exclamation point, which is really cute. Along with that, there are also different eyes. So here are two, and then here are two. So if you want to make, for instance, a robot with a more masculine flair or a more feminine one, then you could definitely do that depending on what you're going to be using this for. I think it's a lot of fun. So I'll get to cutting some papers and I'll be back with a few so that we can get started. To begin the construction, we're going to start with two torso base pieces cut with this die, two torso side pieces cut with this die, and with this die here, which is the long thin rectangle, we're going to create a joiner panel. If you'd like to, go ahead and burnish your fold lines. They're going to be created by the die. And once these are ready, you'll be adhering them to these side pieces. So apply adhesive on one of the long tabs first. Join it to the side panel, making sure that that circle aperture is facing the top. This will be where the little robot arms go. Again, join this one. You'll now be joining these two panels together, so you can fold it just like this and then join it along that long tab. These are going to join together to form the bottom of this box. However, I'm going to flip it over because I'm going to do it from this direction, and here you get to see how this will close. And this is going to have a small gap, and that's why you need your little joiner panel. I'm going to apply adhesive to these little side tabs Of course, you could apply it to the edge of this paper here if you prefer to do it this way. I don't think there's a wrong way to go about it. And then curve that paper along that corner and make sure that it joins the two side tabs here, or front and back tabs. Just holding that paper together to create a nice crisp curve there. Do that for the front and the back. So on the opposite side, I'm going to repeat the same steps, just adding little drops of adhesive to those little tabs there, and also just adding a little bit of adhesive along the edge, just to ensure that I can walk that over that side curve and then join this together. Okay. Just be careful with those corners, obviously, because you don't want to accidentally buckle your paper, but it should look like this. Once you have those, now you can adhere the center tab onto the bottom. So it might be a little bit difficult to see, but I am going to add this here. And have that center tab in there, and then going to burnish that nicely. And I'm not going to be too concerned about any adhesive because it will dry clear. So this is what it should look like once that is applied on the inside. Hopefully you can see it a little bit better there. Here we go. I'm now going to decorate the sides, and this is actually front and back. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some Harmony papers from Tonic Studios. They look like this, and it's a pink holographic. And using this die that looks like a letter U, I've cut this out, as well as this silver cardstock. Both of these are from the Harmony collection of papers. And using the decorative die, I cut into that silver cardstock so that I could achieve this look. And of course, you'll see it in the packaging as well. So that way you get to see what that looks like. And this I can just layer right on top. I think it's so pretty. You do have the option, of course, of just leaving it as a solid layer. It's easier to decorate everything flat, but I went ahead and just thought that this would be easy enough. So I'll apply this right along the bottom edge. There's also another die included in your set that will cut out little gears, and I thought that would look really pretty on here, and there's a smaller one as well. So I've cut those out just to layer right on top and give this a little punch of color. So I'm just going to apply a little drop of adhesive here in the center, just to layer these on top. I'm going to flip that over and repeat that on the other side, just again to continue the same theme of colors. So now I'll be setting this aside to dry. To create the torso topper, we'll be using these two dies and cutting out two pieces, as you see here. And this portion of the die is going to leave a demarcation line on that paper that you can clearly see. We're going to be using that as a guide to place the square die that will fit exactly inside of that indentation created. So if you need this for reference, you can simply place it like this, right on your paper, and this is where you see the location of that little square. So once you've cut out that panel, you can go ahead and take some low-tack tape to hold on to that little square, and then cut this out of each one. before we start our assembly. You'll have now two pieces that look like this. You can simply take this away and you'll have your little apertures. Using these two pieces now, we're going to actually overlap them to create a piece that will look like this. If you like, go ahead and fold and burnish your lines before doing so, just to make it easier to assemble, but the order is okay if you do it after. So apply adhesive to this larger rectangular area. Place it right on top of the bottom one, making sure not to overlap that fold line or this one, or the one on top. Okay, you can burnish that nicely. Once this is adhered, you can decorate it using these layers. I've cut it out twice because I'm going to put one on both sides of this aperture. This is where the little neck of the robot will go. So these are essentially the shoulders. So I've also gone ahead and cut little layers to adhere on top to decorate them. So there are two dies to create this. One of them is the solid die. You can tell I cut it out of that pink holographic paper. The other one's the inlay die that will give you that option there. But remember, there are other dies included that will also allow you to decorate this, that will deboss into the paper. So that's, of course, a personal choice. But here there's a demarcation line you can follow for placement. Makes it really easy. And I'll be adding that little gear there just for fun. Now to close this, we're going to fold this down, and this, to create the sides, will be adhering these little side tabs to their adjacent panels. So I'll first be doing one side. So now you've created what will be the upper torso of your little robot. You're going to select which side will be the front, and this will actually fit right over the base that you've created, just like so. To decorate this torso, I've used these two dies as an option, and I've created this piece here. So using the solid die, I cut what is the background, that's that pink holographic paper, and I also cut the silver paper, then use the layer, of course, to create that intricate decorative layer. I also use this decorative die to cut all of these papers that you see in here, and that way I was able to create a really decorative front, because this is going to be a really pretty decoration that will be front and center on this robot. So I'll be adhering that right here. You can see I've also used some little gems. That's always a fun option, or you could do Nouveau drops, of course. So I'll be adding this to what will be the front, and again following the shape of this. And of course it's an option to do the same on the back. I'll be leaving mine plain for now because I will be doing something different. We're now going to be using the shoulder panel and the shoulder catch die. These are compatible with one another. I've cut the shoulder panel out twice, as you see here, and then my shoulder catch, which is this one, I cut out 3 times for each side, so a total of 6. What I've done is cut 2 in the classic card from Tonic Studios, and then 1 from a 300 GSM card, just to make it a little more sturdy. And I'm going to actually layer these together so that it's a little bit more substantial. And that's because there's going to be some movement here. So I'm going to place this on top and then do the same thing one more time before I adhere it to the actual base piece. I've done that another time. So these are going to adhere onto the torso topper. The first thing that I'm going to do is place each one of these on top, just making sure that I line them up properly here. So I'm going to make sure that this is nicely placed where it needs to go here. Once these are fully adhered, we want to cover them so that they don't look unsightly on our project, and that's what this piece is here for. What's important, however, is that you don't add any adhesive to this little channel that's created. So go ahead and add your adhesive to the remaining portion, which you don't need a whole lot. Makes it a little bit easier for your placement. And then you can hide everything with this second panel here. Place this right on top. Once these are fully adhered, go ahead and cut 4 corner panels using this die here. What I've done is that I've decorated mine with little gems as well. And these are actually going to cover these raw edges. The way that you'll use them is to fold them in half and overlap the semicircular tabs. These are then going to adhere right on the corners of those little shoulders. So all you have to do is apply adhesive here, and I've applied an ample amount inside of that, and then you'll see how easily this fits right on those little corners there, just by holding that against the paper. And the corners should fit really nicely on the bottom there as well, and it'll conceal those raw edges on the corners. This way you have a nice sturdy base here. Okay, that's how that should look all the way around. To create the neck of your robot, you can use the neck panel, and it looks like this. Cut that out twice for the neck, and if you want to, you can definitely use the decorative piece that is included. I've done so, as you can see, and already adhered them to each panel here. This is going to adhere back to back along this tab that is square, and of course you have these rectangular tabs on the top and bottom as well. So let's make this into one long panel here, adhering these one to another. I've opted for also using that pink holographic paper here, but of course you could use classic card if you choose to. To make this into a square, we're also going to apply adhesive to that second tab and close this by bringing that strip over and adhering that together. Once this is dry, you're going to feed it through the aperture of the robot that you created, and this will adhere on the inside using those 4 tabs. Position this inside of that aperture. I wanted to show you that because of the type of paper that I chose to use here, I'm actually going to supplement this with a tiny little drop of hot glue to be able to adhere this, because the paper does have a bit of a coating to it and it's a little bit harder to adhere it onto another paper because of that texture. So what I did is just add a little tiny drop of hot glue to each side there, and this way I'll be able to complete my project. So in the end, this is what the inside will look like for that little neck portion. We're now going to create these little square frames. This is how they're referred to in this project. And what we're going to do is again use the same die that we used to create the little neck portion. Only this time around, we're also going to couple it with the little square included, and it fits right along the edge there, as you can see. And you can definitely decorate it with the little included die. So I'm going to set that aside for a moment. I'm further using this little die here that's included in the set to decorate 2 of these, as you can tell. And what I'm going to do is adhere them end to end as we did the neck one. And using this panel here, we'll simply adhere them end to end as we did before. We're going to adhere the last little square tab just as we did before as well to close this off. So you can fold it onto itself and then hold that nicely. And while I'm here, I just want to let you know that you're going to be repeating this a total of not just the 2 times here for what will be the shoulders, but you're going to be doing this again for the feet. So in total, you will need 14 strips cut out of this piece here. And along with that, you'll need to be cutting this little square here a total of 4 times for the shoulders. So you select the color for that. And also a total of 8 times for the feet. So you also select the color for the feet that you choose to use, and then cut the little strips accordingly. I'm now going to close this off using the 2 little squares that I cut out. So here I'm simply going to adhere these tabs onto a square. And the square is going to actually help me shape this as well. Once you've adhered the one side, flip that over and then repeat the same on the opposite side. And this is where I'm going to add the decorative one. Once you've created your little shoulder cubes, you're now going to use the shoulder joint panels. So using this circle here, you can create stacks that will allow you to connect these pieces together and add them to the torso. Now what I'm going to do is I'm first going to create my little stacks here, and I've already gotten started, as you can tell, but I'm going to adhere 4 of these circles together in total for each side of the little latch piece there. So it's going to be a total of 8. And then I'm also going to be using the little fallout circle from the torso. So be sure to save those. And one of these is going to go centered onto one of these circles here. So this is going to help us with our placement. I'm simply going to place this little circle right on top and centered. The die will create the placement for you. So now we're done with this one. Be sure to cut this one according to the thickness of your paper. So what I've done is I've cut it out twice. Once out of 300 GSM card, another out of the classic card. And I'm going to adhere these stacked together. But what I want to show you is that this is going to actually help close this. So because this is going to be the little shoulder joint and it's going to actually match that little aperture, what you want to make sure is that it does latch in here into that channel that you had created previously. and that's how it's going to face. So you make sure that you place this so that it faces according to what the front of your box is. So I'm going to be adhering this with this pink on top of the white. And this is classic card from Tonic Studios, and this is 300 GSM card. I only need 2 for mine. But on here, I'm going to adhere this little cube. However, I want this to be able to move well. So I'm going to stack my circles on one side, and onto this stack I'm going to adhere my cube. And adhere this together. And essentially this piece gets sandwiched between the 2 stacks of circles. But first, let's add 1 stack. And this gets adhered right onto this cube. And I'm going to try to center that as best as I can. Right in the center of that square. And I would say that this portion here can help you kind of eyeball the center point of that. Once that's nice and dry, you're actually going to bring it to this base. So I'm actually going to bring it here, and this is going to face the inside, and if you see there, that's where it's going to connect through that little aperture. So I'm going to take my second stack, and because the paper matches, you'll be able to see how exactly where the placement should be. And apply your adhesive, making sure to avoid, of course, the edges. So just be a little more careful there. Okay, so we have our adhesive on our little circle. And now we know exactly how we want our little joint to face. We're going to center that as best as we can. And this, of course, should not exceed the edge of that. But you're going to eyeball it and try to make sure it's nicely centered. So this eventually will go in here with both sides being able to lock. So you're going to repeat the same steps on the opposite side, making sure that your circles match, and also that the little lever that you had created will be able to lock this in place. So it should fit really nicely through there, and then when you twist that, it's going to help you lock this closed. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to allow that to dry a little bit more before I try to feed that closed, but it should definitely latch your little box closed, which I think is so clever. So let's let that dry for a little bit. To create your little arm pieces, you're going to be using these dies here. So you need 1 of each of these strips per arm, so 2 of each total. Then you need 2 of these per arm, and that will look like this. And if you'd like to, you can also decorate each one of those using that layer. So as you can see here, I've already created one, so we're going to make one together. You're going to fold and burnish all of the fold lines created by the die. So be sure to do that all the way around, and they're all mountain folds. So it should look like that. You're now going to adhere these together by the triangular portion on one end. So apply your adhesive there and join these along the blunt edge to that triangle and hold that together. Now on the other end here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to adhere the shorter tabs onto the sides before I begin. So pull that in and adhere it to the side tabs. Okay, so it should start looking like this. Then these 2 side tabs, if you'd like to do the same, will adhere onto the two side portions here. So just apply a little drop of adhesive there as well. Fold that over and add it to the sides. Again, on opposite sides here. It makes it a whole lot easier. So once those are adhered, you'll actually be joining these together along the longer tabs. So now you can go ahead and apply adhesive here and apply adhesive to the longer tabs, and then also that small triangular tab. Close this and then join both sides together. You can use your table to hold it together if you like. Once this is fully adhered, of course, you'll repeat it one more time, but then you have these longer strips here. There's a shorter one and a longer one. The longer one you'll fold in a mountain fold along the score line. The shorter one you're going to fold as a valley fold along the score line. Once these are folded, you're actually going to use them to create a support on the sides of the little arm. Okay, that's why you needed that to be a mountain fold. Then you're going to use the shorter one with the valley fold on the inside of the arm. Okay, so now you have your two little arms, and you're going to add the little hands. So go ahead and cut this out 4 times, and you're going to create mirror images. So what you'll do is adhere them to each other. However, there's a little tab here at the bottom, or a little crease line. So following that line, go ahead and fold that as a valley fold. And then adhere these mirror image to each other. So this will then create that little tab in the center. Now you can add adhesive to those tabs and place these at the end of your little arm. And this should take up the entire space there. Okay, repeat that on the second one, and you now have your 2 little robot arms. We're now going to create the head of the robot, and as you can tell, there are quite a few pieces here, but I'm going to walk you through it. These are the sides of the head, and you'll be using this rectangular die. So you'll cut this out twice. One of them you're also going to cut into using the square die included in your set. It's the same square die that you'll use for the little shoulders and the feet. So go ahead and cut into that right in the middle. You can definitely position it by measuring it out with your longer die there. That will give you an aperture that looks like that. So you can save this for the feet if you'd like to. You can also decorate these with this side panel or die layer here. So you can cut that out 4 times if you'd like to. For the other side panel, which you also cut out with this piece, you're going to be using this die here, which is going to allow you to position the coin slot. So this will go in the center to give you an idea as to where you will place this thinner die that looks like this. So go ahead and position that in the middle. So you're going to gauge it by that larger die. Go ahead and use it to trace the area if you'd like. I don't think that's going to be of any consequence. It's actually going to make it a little bit easier. Then position your little coin slot die right there in the middle. Now you can run that through your die cutting machine. When you remove this, you should have that little aperture that you can use for the coin slot. Once you have this cut out with your little coin slot, you have a decorative die that you can use, as well as the other two pieces that we'll be able to place here. However, you can combine these two dies. It's the same one that you use to create the slot, and also the larger rectangular one you see here. And if you'd like to, you can add this right on top as a decoration. This can go right on top of the slot portion here, and that's why it's okay to go ahead and create a demarcation with a pencil if you'd like to, because it's not going to be seen. And lastly, you can decorate this little edge with this delicate little die there. So you can place that one right on top, as you did for the other one. So you now have your two side panels ready to go. You're also going to use this die to cut this out 4 times for the sides of the head, or the front and back I should say. Then there's this piece here that you can cut out as a solid, or you can use with the deboss die included. As you can tell, I've already used it to go ahead and decorate what will be the back of the robot's head. You're also going to be using 2 each of one of these for the inside. So we'll discuss that in a moment. But first, let's go ahead and position these pieces together as they should be. You're going to use the longer of the tabs here to begin, and you're going to be doing that for all 4 pieces. So be sure to fold and burnish the little tabs that you have. So the ones that I don't have decorated here are actually going to be the face of the robot, but I think I'm going to adorn it once this is all assembled so that I get my placement as I like it. So just go ahead and fold and burnish these. You don't have to worry about the corner pieces, by the way, because adding just a tiny little drop of adhesive is going to work out really great for those. So just make sure that everything's folded and burnished. And join it to one of your side panels. So I'm going to do it this way because I'm left-handed and it's easier. Center this right here and use your paper creaser to burnish that in place. And then do the same with the other one. So this way you know that they're facing one another. I think that's going to be the easier way to go about this. So you're going to center this as well. Okay, so you should have them both just like that, kind of marrying each other there. So now you're going to do the same with these on the opposite sides, right in the center. There is a score line, by the way, on there that will guide you as to your placement. So if you're nervous about that, just take a peek at that first score line. Should be exactly where that tab ends on both sides. Just be sure that it's all the way to the edge there. That way this aperture is not blocked in any way. But once you have those assembled, now you're going to be able to fold these up and adhere the side all the way up to the end of this tab here. So again, if you want to visit those little tabs with a little tiny drop of adhesive, you can. Fold this and hold it so that it meets all the way up to the top. And then hold that in place. You now have the top and bottom portion of the head. This is going to be the back for mine, and then, as I said before, this will be the front, and I'll decorate this after the fact. But you now have these little support pieces, and there's 2 long ones, 2 short ones. These will go on the inside to help you close this portion. So what you want to do is make sure that you adhere these only halfway right inside. So just eyeball this. If not, you could definitely score it if you're concerned about that. So these will adhere right along front and back. And this is the base piece, so that's why I'm adding them here. And I'll be doing the same thing on both sides. However, you're now going to feed this in here. And you're going to adhere these tabs onto this base. So you're going to fold them out to meet the edges of this head portion. And you're going to be adhering these tabs open, as you see there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. I used hot glue to make sure that I adhered those 4 tabs very nicely. And the one thing I'll tell you here is to be mindful of what is the front of your robot if you're doing that. That way you get these facing in the right direction, because then you're going to close this and be able to either finish that off, or you will have placed your little elements first and then be able to close that. So this is what the back looks like so far. And as you can tell, I haven't yet decorated this portion, and of course I went all out on the front. However, I wanted to let you know that if it bothers you the way this looks on the inside, you could definitely cut another one of those side panels and then just cut that in half if you'd like, and then adhere it on the inside to create a nice clean finish. I'm just going to add this inside. This is just going to create a nice pretty finish for me visually. I just thought it'd be a good idea to go ahead and take advantage of those dies. Okay, so you can continue adding more to that if you'd like, or just leave it as such. However, what I'm going to do now is, since I have my glue gun out on this table, I'm now going to adhere my little arms to the robot, and that's just going to make it easier for me. Of course, I'll be cleaning off any little strings, but here you get to decide how you're going to place the arms. So I want mine to look a bit interactive, so I'm simply going to add a little drop of adhesive to that arm portion and then adhere that to the side already closed. I'm going to do this as it's fully closed, of course. That way I know exactly how it's going to look. when it's all said and done. And a tiny bit of adhesive is all you need. But I'm going to add this one facing down. There are the little arms, and then of course the head. So on here you have some options, of course, as to how you decorate this. I've gone ahead and used the decorative dies that look like this to cut out what will be the little eyes for the front. I thought that would be super cute. You can use tweezers to help yourself with placement. I think I like that little portion facing up like that. Okay, it's going to add the little eyes. And I also cut out the other little layers that are circular, and one of them looks like a little gear. I went ahead and put little diamond dots on those, and those are going to create the center of the eyes. This doesn't have to be fully assembled while you're doing this, but for the sake of the video, I wanted to show you that I'll be placing those there. Just like that. I thought that would look really cute. And then there are other pieces that you can use for the nose and mouth. And I used this die here to create what will be the mouth, particularly one little solid portion of it. So I just used that and cut it out of multiple different types of paper that I have here. I'm going to make a little mouth out of this. I thought it'd be fun to go ahead and do this. Decorate the little front here, just using all the colors that I've used so far. It is a robot after all, so she's meant to be fun. Okay, so that's going to be her little face. I wanted it to be really nice and playful. But let's move on to the legs. You can now create your little leg panels using this die combination. So if you want to decorate them, you can use the little decorative die here, but cut this out twice per leg. These are going to adhere along the long tab on the side. So be sure to fold and burnish all of the tabs. They're all going to be mountain folds. Then place your adhesive on the longest tab and adhere that to a second portion. Then you're going to join the other half the same way with that long tab, and you can almost close it like that, and then burnish that really well. Repeat that with the second one. Set these aside to dry and then work on the little feet portions. So the same way that you had created the little shoulder boxes, you're going to do the same for the feet. So you're going to take two of the strips, adhere them one to another, and then it's up to you if you want to decorate all of the sides or if you only want to decorate 3, and I'll show you why. But in case you need to see this again, then I'm going to share with you how you join these two together with the square tab. Make sure that you fold all of the tabs away from you and burnish all of those fold lines. If you'd like to decorate this, do it before you close it off. But you don't need all 4 of the little decorative portions, just 3 will suffice. Close that off. by adhering the square portion to create your little, what will be the little cube. And you'll be doing that a total of 4 times for the feet. So once you have all 4 of these, you're actually going to adhere squares to both sides to close them off, the same way you did for the shoulders. Once you have an entire side, flip these all over and do the same thing on the opposite side. Once you have adhered your little cubes, this is why I had mentioned that it wasn't necessary to decorate all 4 sides. So you can omit one side of each. I accidentally went ahead and decorated all of mine, but here you can see that this is blank. What I'm going to do is use my hot glue and adhere 2 of these together for each foot. So just join those together as such. And then of course, with this being the feet, you're going to select one of these to be the front and one of them to be the back, where you place the leg of the robot. Add my adhesive there and just join it up with the second one, with 2 more little squares, and of course that's completely optional. I'm also going to add the little legs here by closing that little portion at the bottom there. It's up to you, but you can definitely decorate the back portion as well. It's completely optional. So once these are ready, you can then prepare the little legs. Apply a little dollop of adhesive here, and then make sure that you have this pretty face up or front, and then just press that right onto the center of what will be the back of the foot. Now that these are ready, you can place the little legs, I would say about 1/4 inch apart, and I'm going to use my grid here on my table to help me. So I would say maybe 3/8 of an inch apart from one another, and then I'm going to place the robot right on top after I place my adhesive. So I'm going to be careful here, pushing down these little tabs. Once I have my placement here, I'm going to add my adhesive, and then I'm going to only adhere one at a time just to be sure that I get my placement correct here. Hold that in place for a moment or 2. Now I'm going to add adhesive to the second one. And I'm again going to make sure that the little feet are about 3/8 of an inch apart. And then hold on to that again. Okay, so she's standing. It's going to be a little bit difficult to show on camera, but I guess I'll hold it sideways here. But here we go. I think it's so cute. So of course you can keep decorating this, and one of the items that you can use, and I'll show you now while this is standing here, is the little gear that would wind up the robot. I've cut mine out twice using the die included. So using this die here, you can cut this out 2 times to create a mirror image, and you're going to adhere these together. I also use that little gear die to decorate that portion and added some little gems, but there's a little fold line here that you want to pay attention to. You want to fold that as a valley fold on both. Then go ahead and adhere these back to back, avoiding that little tab. Place one right on top of the other. Then of course it's up to you how and where you add this, but I'm going to be adding it to the back, and I thought to decorate this with maybe another square here and add this right in the center. I think that'll look cute. I'm actually going to take another square and just cut it right in half, my own, right in the middle of that one square. Just to make sure that this is nicely centered. And this has little stippling dots on it, so it helps with the placement. Then I'm going to grab my second square and place that right on top to hold that together. I'm going to join that here in the middle. There's going to be a tiny little gap, but because it's glitter cardstock, it's less noticeable, I think. So now that I have that, I'm going to adhere this to the back. And I'm just going to center it here. So that's going to be the little key on the back of my robot. I just think it's so cute. Now, one of the other items included is this piece here, and it has two little tabs, and then there's also a little strip that goes along with it. This is going to create a bow, so all you have to do is burnish this with your paper creaser to create the little loops of your bow. And then join these at that little tab that's right at the end. So I'm going to take advantage of my hot glue because it's here. Close off that little tab. Those two can come together in the center and overlap to create a small bow. Just like so. And then you can add the little strip that you cut out with the second die. It has little score lines, and you can use them to guide you so that you can adhere this and cover up that seam. So just wrap it around to the back of the bow. Apply your adhesive in the center, and then bring one loop in and then the other one right on top. So that's how you can create the little bow. You can add these wherever you like and make this super cute. So I'll be decorating that off camera, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Here's my completed project, and I just wanted to quickly go over the fact that the little arms, of course, work as a locking mechanism. So to open it, then all you have to do is disengage the little shoulder from that top portion of the torso by pulling on the paper, and this is going to allow that to slide right back open. So you get to see what that looks like there once it's open, and then the arms are able to move fully because then they're not locking the side there. So then you can pull that right off, and you have plenty of room here for any goodies that you would like to give away. And as of course this is a little gift box, but of course you could use it as a coin box with that little slit. But the one thing that I would say is that if you do intend on filling this with anything and you still want it to be able to stand, that I would reinforce it with paper straws in here inside of these little tubes or the little legs, And that way you can add maybe some hot glue inside of each one of these, and also add heavier paper to the bottom portion. So that way you get a sturdy little footing, no pun intended, on that little robot there. And it won't topple over, because whenever anything is top heavy, that can of course happen. This little box portion is about 3 1/4 by 2 1/4 inches. And then this, of course, the little head portion is smaller. This one is about 2.5 inches by 2 inches when it's all said and done. But don't forget that if you didn't want to use it as a little coin box, you could certainly close this off with another little square and then have 2 gift boxes in one. For the head portion of the little robot, I just added some little curls by quilling some paper. And all you have to do is cut it into little strips and then create your little loops, or however many little items you want to create. I wanted her to have some curly hair. So I also added little brows there, and then I added the little earrings on the sides, so that way it would just look really super girly, which is of course one style of crafting that I really love to do. And yeah, just little gems everywhere, of course. And I added the little bows to the feet on the shoes there. That helps to cover the little seam there, and it gives it a little bit of sturdiness. But of course you can use all of the little circles that fall out from all of the other cutting that you'll do, and then stack those one on top of another to create any type of decoration. And I think that's about it. I added the little gears there too, what would be the elbows, and just little gems throughout. But this was a lot of fun to craft with. There are 80 pieces to this die set, so just take your time cutting out what you need, and of course pause the video as you need to if you want to craft along. But I thank you for having spent some time with me today. Don't forget that there are many more items coming your way this week, so I'm not sure when this video will publish in the actual schedule. I don't have that in front of me at the moment, but I hope that you have enjoyed this. Don't forget to leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and share your own version on the official Facebook Tonic Studios page so that everyone else can see how you have crafted with these dies. We love to see your projects, and as I always say, I do hope that you can be inspired and be blessed, and I thank you so much for watching.